Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's session. We'll get started in just a minute. I know it's just about a minute or two beforehand, so we're going to give another minute or two for attendees to start coming in and signing in. In the meantime, just want to give a few little announcements here. First of all, I hope you're enjoying everything that's been going on today, the different sessions. I know I've been able to moderate some and sit in some, and I've been getting a lot of ideas, and I've been getting text messages from other city staff who've been watching in other parts of the city, asking me questions about, can we do this? Can we do this? So I think these sessions are going to be creating a lot of work for me in the near future. Before I get started, of course, we do want to thank our sponsors. I was just talking with Frank beforehand and talking with him about, as the treasurer, the board said they wanted to do a virtual conference this year with COVID and stuff like that. And I said, that sounds great. And then they said, but we want it to be free. And as a treasurer, I was kind of like, that doesn't sound so great, but it is through the thanks of our sponsors, and Panda Consultant, Frank's, which is Frank's, is one of our platinum sponsors. So we do greatly appreciate that sponsorship to allow us to bring this SHRUG Virtual 2020 workshop to you this way. We're not able to meet in Tallahassee and do all the networking and exchanging of information and swapping of stories this year, but we are happy that we're able to get together in this format. With that, we do have a hard stop at 5 o'clock because of our recording times and such like that. So we will have to end everything at 5 o'clock. I did ask Frank about questions, and he likes a very interactive session. So in your box, you'll see questions area. And that's where if he asks a question, that's where you can type your answers in, and he and I will both be able to see the answers. Or if you have specific questions throughout the session, you can type your questions in at that location there. I think that takes care of all the good stuff we have here before we get into the really good stuff, which is the actual presentation. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Frank Conkling to the presentation here, and I'm going to switch it over and make you the presenter so you can have the full control.
Great, thank you. All right. And I don't want to show my main screen. I want to show, here we go. All right. So actually, I do want to make one correction there. Rather than putting your answers in the question window, you might put them in the chat window. It's a little bit more interactive. And just sort of make that modification on there.
Yeah, I think all they, yeah, excuse me, Frank, I think all they have access to is the question box. We have it set up that way.
Okay,
I just checked on my live broadcasting, yes.
Okay. So I can show the questions. Again, I'm not used to GoToWebinar. How do I actually ask a question? It's just a verbal question?
You could ask the verbal question, and just, we can use that question box for them to type their answers in that area there.
Perfect. Well, let's start with that then. All right. Right now, the way that this abstract is written, it basically is parcel mapping differences between ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro. The question was, did you wish to see the differences between just the standard editing or the parcel fabric editing? I know most of you up there are probably still just trying to go and get your footing on ArcGIS Pro. And so we can go and we're very flexible. We can do this all with just standard editing, or we can actually go and show the parcel fabric a little bit more. So if you would, in the question area, go and type out what your response is there. And let's see here. If anybody has got any preferences in here. Again, I don't, I just have a question on this because I don't know.
I am taking a look at them. So far, we've gotten standard, and also have one. The whole concept is new to me. I'm happy with whatever would be appropriate for beginners.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't seen any of those questions or any of those answers. So thank you. All right. So what we're going to do then is just look at the standard and look at the differences between them. I actually have a data set here from, this is actually from McCulloch County. And we have showing up on the screen here, we have ArcMap 10.8.1, in which we just have standard parcel layers. And we're going to try to make this as simple as possible because we do want to just show the differences and how the data is treated and how you actually interact with the data. One of the things you'll notice is that there's an awful lot of similarities between them. While the interface is a little bit different, they actually can work on the same data with a couple of exceptions on there. And so this is ArcMap here, and then over here, this is actually ArcGIS Pro with the exact same data in a map in ArcGIS Pro. This is the ArcMap data, and then right next to it, this is the ArcGIS Pro data. Excuse my horrible green coloring, but I just wanted to go and use that and start out with something for symbology on here. And then over here is the parcel fabric. We can go ahead and close this. We don't need that parcel fabric in this workshop anyway. All right, so just to start, I'm assuming that since this is a parcel mapping workshop, that we're somewhat familiar with terms such as COGO and things of that sort. I'm assuming that's valid. So let's just sort of review a little bit about how the structure is on these feature classes that we're editing against. And if we look at the actual line feature class that we're pulling in here, what we have on there is we have some standard COGO fields. We have the angle, the distance, the radius, delta, tangent. And then we have another field called record boundary type, in which this county actually had, the record boundary type in there. Then we had side, we had arc length, and then dim code, and it looks like they had done some work on here to find the nearest on here, the nearest other feature on there. But let's start with the angle. The angle is actually representing the bearing of a line. A bearing goes and denotes what direction a line is, and it uses, in most parts, a quadrant bearing, showing the angle from north towards the east or north towards the west, and from south towards the east or south towards the west. You will notice on here, and this is the biggest difference between ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, is that this COGO field is actually stored as a text field. This is not a number field, this is a text field. And you'll find the same thing with the distance field is also a text field, the radius text field, delta text field, tangent, these are all text fields. And why are they text fields? They're text fields primarily because ArcMap still contains that remnant of wishing to go and put data together so that you can produce a map. It's always about producing a map with ArcMap. And so they're thinking about the cartography of this. What information do you want to go and put up there? Not necessarily what data you're going to use to analyze, but what information you're going to put up there. So that inside of ArcMap, all of these COGO fields are just nothing but text fields. They're pieces of text up there, so they're not very useful for anything beyond creating that map. You can't analyze, well, what's the difference between these two lines in here? Or what is the length of this line compared to the actual distance field that's stored on here? So there's also some other differences in there. For example, you'll notice as we go over to ArcGIS Pro that there is a delta field. The delta field actually goes and denotes an angle. The delta field goes with a curve, and it goes and denotes the angle that's subtended between the beginning of the curve and the ending of the curve by the two radiuses. That field is no longer in ArcGIS Pro. The tangent field also is not in there any longer. The side field actually still is in there, and it denotes which side of a line is the radius point for the curve actually located on, and then arc length. So if we go and look at the attribute here, it will show us, all of these lengths in here. In this case, it looks like there's no angles stored on here, but just the actual length on here. I notice, again, I really didn't look at this data much before coming in here. This data is it's got like 9 different decimal places here. I'm surprised that they didn't go and round it up, but that's what they've got here. So, and the radius is also extended all the way out to 9 decimal places. So when we're mapping this, when we're showing this, and when we're dealing with this, what we need to do is think about what are we going to represent on that map, whether that map is presented on the screen or whether it's presented in some hard copy out there. And it's always about putting together, from ArcMap, it's always about putting together that map, making it look good and such. So, for example, if I have a label on here, which I do have on my lines, I can go over to my labels and define what my expression is. And I can see that for my label, I've actually, this is in VB script, I've told it to take the value that's stored in the distance field and round that value to 2 decimal places so that I could show, what the actual distance is here. So when I am beginning to draw something on here, I would start by editing. Then I would go and make sure that my Cogo attribute field or my Cogo toolbar is open, which is located here. And then I could go and begin a traverse. Now in the traverse, one of the things I want to watch out for is whether or not my units have been set in my actual ArcMap session. So I'm going to go down to my editor options, go to units, and make sure, this is normally what happens. I need to go and make sure I set it to quadrant bearing and to degrees, minutes, and seconds, and hit apply. Notice there's also another section here, ground to grid correction. If it turns out that I'm using ground bearings or ground distance, and I wish to project it up to the grid, I can go and tell it what my bearing offset is here and what my scale factor is here also. Most organizations don't get involved that closely on it. So now I need to set my template and say I wish to go and utilize parcel lines on here. And why is it still not working? Set those in here. Interesting. Oh, I need to, I guess, start my start point. I have to tell you, it's been so long since I've used ArcMap. And then the next thing is I need to put in my bearing. In this case, I'm going to go north, 0 degrees east. I'm going to hit tab. And then tell it I wish to go 100 feet north and hit enter. And that will go and input that value for me. I can then say north 90 degrees east and hit enter. Then I can go south 90 degrees east and hit enter. Oh, sorry. That should be south 0 degrees east. One more time here. south 0 degrees east, and then I can go south 90 degrees west for 100 feet to go and close out. An interesting thing about this is that I have not yet created anything. This is merely creating a sketch for me. It's creating a sketch, and it's only when I hit finish that it actually is going to go and finish on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and take and save this traverse out. And real quickly, I'm just going to go and save it to here, call it test traverse. And I'm going to save that, and I'm going to pull it in later when I begin doing this editing. So only when I hit finish do these lines actually appear. So up until this point, and this is sort of one of the changes between ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, ArcMap is still heavily reliant upon a sketch being some temporary drawing that's done until you finish it, and then it becomes a real value in here, a real feature class. So I just went and drew that and created this set of lines. If I look over on my attributes, here are my lines for me. So if I wish to go and move that, what I can do is, I can see, by the way, I have a selection anchor here. I can hold down my control key and move it down to and snap to one of the corners there. And I can move this down and snap it in place there. So I can go and draw this, make sure this matches. And then I have the problem of, well, how do I make sure that this bearing in here matches exactly where it's going? And then down here, how do I go and do this? Inside of ArcMap, we found a lot of ways to cartographically do this. One of which we might go and, rather than starting and just doing the open traverse, we might go and rotate it or move it down, but we can see already that these lines don't coincide with the adjoiners. So we'll have to do some sort of an adjustment on here to make sure that this fits exactly where it's supposed to fit. So I can go and, let's go and push this up here. I can go and do sort of just some standard edit routines on here. And I can take this again and say, well, let's go and edit the vertices, and I can move those vertices down to here. There's a couple things I can do. I can go in and wow, this has been so long. I can do a rotate on here. All right. And it will use whatever my selection set is and give me, there's my rotate. And when I go over here and I hit S, let's make sure I can toggle this. S, it gives me a snap line. I go in here and then rotate that so it fits in there. Again, that made one line fit. If I click over here, I can see that line doesn't fit anymore. So let's get out of here and let's go instead and select this line and select this line. And let's rotate just a single line instead so that it fits. And let's extend the other line on here. Again, tell where I want to rotate around, then go and hit S to get my second snap. Make sure I get on my rotate tool. Here's my second snap anchor. I can go and rotate it and have it to fit. Now this line here has not been extended yet, so I have to go and extend that all the way to this line here. Again, a couple ways of doing this. I can tell it that I want to go and edit the vertices and then extend it that way. I can use an extend button and do that. But again, these are standard type of edit tools on here. Once I have that in place, I can now go and select these lines, and I hold down my shift key in here, hold down my shift key to unselect the other elements in here. Sorry about this. All right. So now I can take this and I can go and split this. I can do a split polygon on here. So polygons I have here. And I can split the two polygons in here, just having the same attribution. I then go in here and edit this, and maybe this is 5.2 here, and my acres, 1 acre or whatever it is. So right now, this isn't much better than just simple drawing, and I liken this to what happens when we go and use just very fundamental tools. This is cartographic mapping is what we're doing here more than anything else. We're just mapping the cartography on here. So I'm going to get out of here and go over to ArcMap instead. And I'm going to go and find someplace. Let's go back here. This is, I'm going to go to ArcMap to locate. I'm going to go and tell it to go and locate this parcel here. And you can see how quickly it zoomed over to that parcel. So one of the differences is the find tool inside of ArcMap. The find tool is the binoculars. When you click on it, you have to wait for it to go through, and then you want to make sure that whether or not it's logging in to find that. I can go and say find this tool again, and we'll go through and do the search on here. There it is there. All right. Inside of ArcGIS Pro, it's the locate tool. The locate tool is located over on the map ribbon over here. And you can go and search through every single layer you have in here. With this, you can tell it what you want to match, how you want to match it and such. Actually, the locate tool is much faster in there. But let's do the same thing that we just did. Let's start with comparing the structure of the line feature class. Because I can tell you already, the polygon feature class is exactly the same. There's no difference in here. But the line feature class, there is a difference. And the first difference you'll notice is, how do I get at the properties of this? How do I get to look at this? In this case, it's a data designer, and it allows me to go and look at the fields that are in here. And when I look at the fields, I can see I still have an angle field. And that angle field, in this case, is still text. All right. But when I go to Pro, that line feature class, instead of being called angle, it's now called direction, and it's a number field. If we look down here, all the distance field, the radius field, the arc length, radius 2 field, these are all number fields in here. And the number fields themselves can be set as far as how many decimal points we want after it, whether we want to pack it with zeros, whether we want a separator on it, whether we want a suffix on it. Maybe we want to go and put a suffix on here when we go and see these in our attribute tables and such. So the first thing is the difference between the structures as far as the line feature classes. The line feature classes inside of ArcGIS Pro, whether it's just standard Pro or whether it's Pro Parcel Fabric, the line feature classes, the COGO attribute fields, are actually number fields. And why is it number fields? Because Esri has recognized that when you use line and when you use number fields, you can actually begin to evaluate and analyze, and you can calculate what's the difference, what's the variance between the distance that's stored on the deed and what it's actually mapped out as, or what's the difference between the bearing or the direction and what it's actually noting on the deed. So you can begin to do calculations on there. You also can go and use this to immediately calculate what the misclosure is on here, because these are, again, these are number fields. This is data. This is not putting it on a piece of text for the map. So the first thing is the difference in these. Now we don't want to save that. So let's look at the next thing then. Once we have that in place, I just want to make sure that I have this correct here. I go here, here. And look at my lines. They have the distances stored. They don't have an angle stored on them. So for some reason, it didn't store that on there for me. When I go over here and I want to go and create a traverse on here, the way I start is, again, I want to go and make sure that my units are set correctly. So I'm going to go over to my options and go to my units, go to my distance field, make sure it's set to feet. My angular units are degrees. Let's make them DMS. Area units are going to be set to acreage. My direction units are going to be set to quadrant bearings. And then I'm going to go back to my actual document. Another thing you'll notice is that with ArcMap, I had to start editing. Then I also have to save edits. Within ArcGIS Pro, by default, there is no start and stop editing. If I have opened up a data set, by default, I can start editing it immediately. Now, if you don't do a lot of editing, you may not want to go and do that. And there's two ways to go and achieve that. The first is over in the table of contents area, there is a tab for editing. And if I uncheck these layers, these feature classes, it will not let me edit them. So I can bring things into my project file, but I may not want to go and edit them. So I can turn them off and not be able to edit them, and it works fine. It shows me it. The other option is in 2.6, there's this new option here, and I keep going back here to my project settings, to my options. And if I go down to my editing, there is this set here that says enable and disable editing from the edit tab. When I click on this option, and then go back here, I will see that over here on my Edit tab, I have an Edit button. Now, and that will allow me to start editing and stop editing on here. And note that while it says enable editing from the Edit tab, meaning whether it's editing or not editing on here. A lot of people, when they first move over from ArcMap, they're comfortable with that. But once you're in ArcGIS Pro for a while, you don't need that as much. You get used to whether or not you're editing or not editing on there. All right, so I'm editing. Let me show you another difference in here. Go back here to my options, and let's go down editing a little bit more and show you that in fact, within this session area, I can set whether or not my edits are automatically saved. And while that may seem like a good idea, and I know a lot of us have been asking about that for a very long time, in actuality, it wasn't everything we wanted it to be. In fact, I recommend you do not put save edits on there. Matter of fact, I also recommend that you not click this button and say save edits while saving the project. And there's a reason for that. You can show the dialog to confirm or show the dialog to discard, but I recommend right now don't save edits automatically and don't save edits when you're saving the project, because with 2.6 under the general tab here, there's actually a project recovery option that says while you're working, every X number of minutes, automatically create a backup of your project file. And this is comparable to the old map document. So it automatically creates a backup copy. Doesn't necessarily overwrite your old one, but it actually has a .backup is what it actually is. It's sort of a hidden file there. And it automatically creates it and you set this, by default, it's 5 minutes, but I tend to make it a longer period of time. Well, if you have this set and you have editing and you say automatically save your edits when saving the project, what happens is every X number of minutes when it saves that backup, it automatically saves your edits. And that's not always what you want. You could be in the middle of an edit and you want to undo it. You can't undo after something is saved. So just be aware of that. You want to make sure that you've got that set up correctly. All right, let me go back here, go back to ArcGIS Pro on here. So let me do that same simple thing where I bring in a traverse and then I go and cut it up, that sort of thing. So the first thing I have to figure out is where are all my tools? Because I don't have toolbars anymore, I have a ribbon in here instead. So the tools are actually located on the edit toolbar. And over here, there is a thing called a gallery. This is the tool gallery. And in the tool gallery, if I pull down, there's a little pull down here. If I pull that down, it will show me all the tools that I have. I can actually switch the size of the tools in here to see them a little bit bigger if I'm having problems with them. And I can scroll down and see all the tools in here. I actually have a traverse tool here. But in addition to that, if I pull this down and say, show me all tools, it turns out that there's a pane in which you can go and have every single tool here. And you have the same option that you can go and say, you can make this small items, or you can make this a list of just the tools that you have as you're getting used to this on here. And I'm still not sure what my preference is on that. But there's also another thing in here, in that you have all your standard tools, and these are all the standard tools inside of ArcGIS Pro, but then you can also create your own tools. You can create your favorites as far as what you're editing in here. And that's as simple as going down to the tool that's yours. Let's go back here and right-clicking on that and saying add to my favorites. And now when I go back up, here's my traverse tool here, the tool that I use all the time. So I can go in and begin with that. So now let's start. With this, remember again, my Kogel fields are not text fields. They actually are real number fields on here. So I can start same way I had to start before. I have to set my standard direction on here. And I can do the same thing. I can input these values in. I'm first going to go and import that file that I had. And that's actually not here. I guess maybe it was there. Huh. I thought I had saved it there. Oh well, I will go and do it by scratch. So here is now importing this. And I could go and put north 0 degrees east, enter, not tab, but enter. And I did 100 feet and hit enter. Now, one of the main differences here is that inside of ArcMap, every time I put a course in there, it was creating a sketch. In this case, it's not creating a sketch. It's actually creating that line every single time I hit enter. It's creating the line on here. So now I could go in and type out, well, maybe it's north 90 degrees east on here for 100 feet. Or I can type out how much of a deflection angle. A deflection angle is when I start here and I turn to the right. Deflection angles to the right are positive, deflection angles to the left are negative. So I could go and type in here, well, maybe I want to go plus 90 degrees, 100 feet. And maybe plus 90 degrees, another 100 feet. And this automatically will tell me that it closed and that it's 0.23 acres enclosed inside of here. Notice it's automatically labeling it for me also. So that's just part of what's coming out of here. So when I'm done, all I really need to do is get off of this pane because it wrote that every single time on here. So I don't have to go and hit finish or anything else in here. So here's another big difference between ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro is the way in which you select things. Inside of ArcMap, when I select it, I can draw a rectangle and do a selection. And every time I do that, it goes and makes a new selection. But in ArcMap, if I hold down the shift key and then do a selection, it would take off what I've already got selected. Not in ArcGIS Pro. In ArcGIS Pro, to remove something from a selection, you hold down the control key and do that. Shift key adds, control key removes. So now I've gone and got that in place. Let me go and move that now. We go and move it, and you'll note also, rather than, let's change the color on here. Instead of green, let's make this something that might be a little bit easier to see. All right, you'll see this yellow dot here. That's to replace that crosshair that was in ArcMap. If I hold down the Shift key and move my cursor over it, I can then go and snap it to this point here. I can then, while I'm clicking on top of the dot, go and move it down to there. And notice it's not finished until I actually click finish my move. And I should see the exact same issue here. And the exact same issue here, and how to go in and make those fit. I could do a rotate, and again, rotate is much like it was before. Hit rotate. Instead of that X, that little crosshair, I now have this. I pull this down, snap to here, and I can rotate by either holding down in here or holding on the actual feature that's selected. And if I note, as I move my cursor over, it's showing me I can rotate from there, or I can rotate from there. But if I try doing it in here, it's not going to rotate. Same way with the old way. If I wanted a second snap key, I could hold down S. The difference is now I can, wherever my cursor is, that's where the snap key becomes. So then I can say, let's move that down to here and say, rotate it until it snaps to there and finish it there. But that's not the most efficient way of doing this. Inside of ArcMap, we have some new tools, one of which is called the Align Features tool. Now, what this Align Features tool allows us to do is to go and draw a path, an alignment path, and it will go and find everything that's inside the tolerance that we input here. I'm just going to put 5 foot just so we can see. And I can say, let's draw a path, and this is pretty far up here. Make sure that it goes and coincides with that boundary line. And if I look, I now have told it that everything that's inside between this buffer here, this tolerance, I want every vertex to go and snap over to this path that I just drew. All right, and I can tell it things like both sides, left side, right side, preserve the shapes. I'm just going to go and do the simplest one here and say, go ahead and snap that over to it. And if you note, it went and automatically moved the vertices over so that they were in alignment to that old existing boundary line. Well, what did it go and rotate? How did it do that? And if I look here, it didn't rotate it. It's still the same. But what it did is it took that other line, those 2 lines there, and modified them so that they are extending out to that exact same line on there. All right, simple traverse on here. Again, I can save the traverse. I can recall this traverse on here. So one of the things you'll also note here is that with my labels, some of these labels are black and some of the labels are red, pinkish color. Why is that? Well, it turns out that the labeling of the lines in here are done with a label routine for Arcade. And if I look at the label properties on here, this is the Arcade label expression. Remember, the values that are stored are actually number fields. So it's storing true numbers in here. So what And this is Arcade, by the way. If you're looking for a language to learn, this is the one to learn. This is used multiple times inside of all of ArcGIS products throughout there. But it basically is a subset of JavaScript that allows you to go and set things such as whether or not you're going to show the bearing on here. You know, what parameters are you going to go and put on here? What error strings are you going to put in here? What's the format? What's for color and what's for what? What happens if you have invalid COGO on here? And that's what we're seeing right here. If we do not have COGO values stored in both the direction field and the distance field, it will go and show you in the color of the label that in fact it's not a valid color. By the way, if you want to learn Arcade, this is a really good Arcade expression. It does everything from taking the number field and converting it, number field for the direction, which is a true number, and converts it from an azimuth into degrees, minutes, and seconds. And there is, it's showing whether it's northeast, southeast, southwest, or south or northwest. It's also going and taking the component of it and calculating from the bearing what the degrees, minutes, and seconds are by here. It's also going and putting it together, and there it is. And then it's also looking through whether or not it's valid. If it's valid, it goes and puts that in. Otherwise, it goes and uses the other string. Really good Arcade expression if you want to learn how to go and begin to learn and look at some of the techniques inside of Arcade. And to prove that, let me go in here and select, in fact, let me go and select that one line that I have here. That's this line here. And let me go and type out a bearing on it and say, well, let's just say this is north 90 degrees. When I do that, what happens is it immediately changes from black, or excuse me, from red to black, because it now has valid COGO on it. So it, inside of ArcGIS Pro, it can tell you whether or not it's got real COGO values on it, or whether it only has partial, or whether it's not valid as far as everything that's in there. Let me go by here one more time, and just to show you also the flexibility of here, if I turn it on and say, don't just do the distance, do the distance and the bearing on here, it will actually go and, without making any major changes in here, because it is calculating it from the values that are stored, it will go and change what's actually being displayed. That, by the way, is list by labeling, and it tells you what's being labeled, sort of replaces the label manager. All right, let me get back to where I was before. Let's unselect these things. Let's have just the 4 lines selected on here. Now let me go and do a clip against this to go and calculate where the values are here. Again, I can go here and say, show me, where is clip? The clip on here. And I have an option to say, what are you going to clip out? In this case, I'm telling it, clip everything that's available to clip. So we'll clip the existing polygon layer, and we'll clip the lines in here. So it will give you new information on here. And here's the buffer. And let's change this. Here's what I'm going to clip. And then the question is, I guess I have to have something turned on. So everything is editable in here. Interesting. Let's do it with a split instead. And let's split these. And I should be able to split here. There's my lines. And let's, so here, this is what I'm going to split out. All right, and here's my parcel that is going to split. So go ahead and split these on here. And if you note, what it did is it took this 100 foot and subtracted it off of here. So I now have this line is split, and here's the remainder on it just to prove. Let's go back, 1339, 1319, and then let's go back and redo the split, 1239, 1219. So it automatically went and split the polygon on top of it and gave me a new parcel here, a new parcel, and gave me the remaining parcel. All right. So I can go and put the new parcel identifier on here. Let's go and change this so that we actually can label not the owner name on here. Interesting, note that this is an arcade expression. This is not Visual Basic. By default, arcade is what's used in ArcGIS. So let's go and put here and have it go and show those values in there for me. All right. Well, let's explore this a little bit more because this is not Visual Basic. This is arcade. So first of all, let's change this so that that's 2 there. And let's explore this a little bit more and create a label with this that shows not just the parcel ID, but maybe it has a new line in there. And then after that new line, it has the acreage in here. So inside of Visual Basic, I might do that by creating a VB new line and then taking the shape area, dividing that by 43,560 and rounding that to 2 to get it to work. Inside of arcade, slightly different. I'm going to use a plus instead of the ampersand to concatenate things together. And that's the text formatting new line in order to go and put a new line in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the shape area. Actually, I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to go and create, using arcade, I'm going to use a built-in function which allows me to pull the property of this. And by looking at the feature, and then telling it to return acreage on here, and go and check and see that is valid. So let's see what this is going to go and do here. There's my acreage, but I want to go and round this up 2 decimal places. And then I want to go and put at the end of that all right, I'll put a space in there. So again, just sort of to show you some of the techniques that are in here for going and doing labels inside of ArcGIS Pro versus labels inside of ArcMap. The more flexibility that you have in here, the ability to go and do things like use, in this case, this is a property of the polygon object that I can go and use. All right. So that's just a simple clip on here where I go and do a traverse, make sure it lines up, and then I go and split what's underneath there and go and put the information on here. But there's more inside of Pro. For example, if I'm in ArcMap and I wish to see where the vertices are located on here, what I can do is I can hold down while I'm doing some sort of editing on here. Let's go and let's go in here to create a line. I can hold down my V key. My V key, it will go and show me all of the vertices that are within about 500 pixels of my screen. Well, that's really not real helpful. Perhaps I want to go and show every vertex all the time. Inside of Pro, you have that ability to do much more sophisticated symbology outside of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and symbolize. I'm going to symbolize my polygons. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is go in here, and I just clicked on that symbol and said, okay, let's do a couple things. Let's go and on my properties, I have the normal symbol. I have my layers on here, and I have my structure. Well, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say create a new layer, a marker symbol on my polygon feature class. And then I'm going to go back to my layers here and actually symbolize this. And what I wanted to do is I want to take this marker and I want to go and make it green. And I want to make it, let's say, 5 points. But the difference is I don't want to go and put it all through here. I want to go and just put it on the vertices of my polygon. I'm also going to go on here and I'm going to say take my color and go all the way down and make it very, very translucent and going to hit apply. When I do this, I can actually go and see that maybe I should make that bigger. That there are my corners. Let me make it, there we go. There's my actual vertices that are inside my data. So I can look at this and very easily see where the vertices are if I want to snap on them, if I want to go and do any sort of editing in here. Note I can actually do the same thing for my line feature class. If I wish to, I can go in there and add, I'm going to actually add 2 symbol markers here. I'm going to go back here, and the first one, I'm going to make 5 points. I'm going to make it red. I'm going to put it on the extremities of the line. And the second one, I'm going to make green. 5 point, and this time I'm going to put it on the vertices of the line. So you'll see here, I can see not just where the vertices are, but where the ends of those lines are. All right, and now if I turn off here, I can see here's the endpoints of my lines. And do I have any vertices on here? It doesn't look like I do. So let's go and take a line and let's edit a vertex and create a vertex in here. All right. Just to show, it will tell me whether or not I have an interim vertices on here or whether it is just one straight Cogo line between them. All right.
Excuse
So
me, Frank.
yes.
We did have one question come in, and I copied it down into the chat room we have as well. But it was asking, when modifying two lines when using the Align tool, are the lines coincident when the tool finishes to edit?
Now, modifying the two lines when using the Align Features tool, are the lines coincident when the tool finishes? Yes, they are. Actually, that's exactly what we did, is we said, make sure that when you use this Align Features tool, you're going to, everything is going to be on that same alignment. And I'll just, and that's a really good question, by the way. I'm going to show you that that Align Features tool is one of my favorite tools in here. So let's go and start and create a couple lines and just show you that here's one line. All right, and then here's another line. All right, so we've got two lines in here. And I'll stop that. And now let's go and use that Align Features tool. If I could find it. Reshape Align Features tool. Now in this case, I'm going to go and draw an alignment. And that alignment, I can say start here and make it here. Now remember, it's going to go and use whatever my tolerance is. And if I go in here and just set this tolerance out, I don't know, 50 feet, not enough, because those vertices have to be inside there. Let's call it 150 feet. There we go. So if the vertex is inside of the tolerance, it will go and move all the vertices to that line. So when I say go ahead and line these two up, it will go and they will be aligned in there, and to show they're actually two lines here. Let's get rid of this thing here. There's two lines in here. There's this line here, which is a shorter one. And then there's this line here, which is the longer one. So to answer your question, yes, it actually goes and will pull it fully into alignment with it. It also will not do an extend to go and recreate where that line was. Matter of fact, if we go back over to, where was I? Come on. I forgot where I was. Here I am. So if I look at this line here that I have, and remember, I am symbolizing the vertices now, so I can see whether or not there's a vertex there. There is no vertices there. It does not do the traditional extend. Rather, it goes and actually moves that end vertex over so it's coincident with it. So that normally, if I were to go and draw a line, again, let me go and create a line here and put it to there. Yeah, my luck, I went and so let's go in. Edit the vertex. Let's pull it back here just so we can see that it's there. All right. When you do the traditional type of extend and trim here, what it's actually going to do is it's going to go and extend that until it goes and intersects with that line there. There we go. So we would go in and do that. And if I do that, come on. I can see that the normal type of extend actually left the original vertex there. The aligned features, because it's actually moving the vertex, it does not leave that little old vertex in there. It actually just sort of extends that line without creating or leaving that residual of where that original distance was on there. That's a really good question. Thank you for that. All right. So some of the other tools, the other differences that you have on here, and again, the one that's most fascinating to me is there we go here. This one here. So this is a series of vertices within a curve. So in fact, it looks like what's actually happening here is there is a densified curve here. Well, with that align features tool, we could actually go, and we don't want 150 feet anymore, maybe 50 feet or 5 feet. We can actually go and draw a curve here and tell it to automatically replace the geometry of everything that's on there. So it will go and take and remove that densified curve on here. So just to prove it, we'll zoom in here and we'll say, let's go back here. And it's a straight line from here to here. And then we can go back and it's now a true curve on here. All right, so that is now a true curve in there. And in order to take, for example, here, I can say go ahead and take those extra vertices out, or as I just created there on purpose was I now have a gap where I can go and say, take these to here and pull them all together. So I can clean up my data using this one simple tool, this align features tool. I can remove extra vertices on there. I can close gaps between them. And again, just to prove that, I can take this parcel here. And I can say edit the vertices on this parcel. Go ahead to there. And then I can say, all right, well, let's go in here again and let's do align features. And let's draw, this is actually where we want this to go. Again, as long as I make sure that that's, it doesn't have to be that big. As long as that the vertices are located inside my tolerance, it will pull them all together and make them contiguous. All right, well, that's one way to do it. But there's other ways, other tools inside of Pro that are just as good. And by the way, notice I haven't done any selections for this. This is basically just the standard types of ArcGIS Pro tools. But one of the options on here is you can see right down here on many of the tools, it says, allow me to go and do this without making a selection. Another tool that we have here is if I go and turn on map topology, I now have the ability to go and do what's called aligned edges. And aligned edges will show me every single edge and allow me to go and move over an edge and say, take the solid edge and move it so it's coincident with the one that's dashed. And I go in here and it went and it has now gone and made those coincident in there without a selection. I go in here and just go through here and clean this whole thing up as I'm going. So if I have, by the way, here is a densified curve by going and doing align features. And again, I only need like a 2 on here. Let's go and do an endpoint curve to here. And then let's go back to here. Let's go ahead and clean it up. I guess 2 wasn't big enough for this. Let's try 5. There we go. On there. Same thing here. Again, first thing is, one of the advantages of Pro is you get much more advanced symbology on here, so I can symbolize where the vertices are on my data. Sorry. So I go in here and symbolize this and say, then I can come back here and make this a curve to here. So go ahead and clean that up. Do the same thing here to the end of that curve, clean that up. So that's now, those are now true curves throughout here. And it will do that for every layer that is turned on and is editable. So if it's editable, you can go in and use this tool with this option to not necessarily have to select your features and allow you to just go and draw this in here. So again, to your heart's extent, you can go in here and clean up and get rid of all the extra vertices in here. And let's go and make this square at the end so we don't do anything there. And I can clean up all my data, get rid of all my vertices on there. All right. So that isn't even parcel editing, that is just standard ArcGIS Pro editing on here. Some of the other things that we can do in here, especially as it relates to parcel editing. If we have 2 parcels on here, there's also the merge command. Now, the merge command would allow us to go and take 2 parcels and make them 1. And in here, we actually have 2 options. We can say, merge them into an existing feature, or I can merge them into a new feature. If I merge it into a new feature, it will take the old ones, allow me to keep them and mark them historic if I have a historic layer somewhere. I'm just going to go and say and do it into one feature and use the attributes from this one for both of them, and it will go and merge them all together. So from a parcel mapping standpoint, that is a combine in which we go and take 2 parcels and make it 1. And you saw how easy it was. Well, what happens if I next want to go and have the east 20 feet, excuse me, the west 20 feet of this adjoining parcel come into there also? So I can take this parcel, and there's a command called divide on here. The divide command, thank you. The divide command knows whether or not I'm dividing a line or whether I'm dividing a polygon. And on here, I can say, I'm going to take and divide this into equal widths. And I said 25 feet. And then I can tell it I want to divide it off of that edge. And it will go and divide 25 feet off of that edge. Allow me to then go and select these two, merge them together, and merge them into this one now. So I've now gone and taken 25 feet of that adjoining lot and merged it in. This is standard type of parcel mapping that gets done every single day. But you can see how much easier it is to go and do with ArcGIS Pro on here rather than just the standard one. So we've done a merge. We've done what's called an aliquot breakdown. An aliquot breakdown says take a portion of something else and then go and allocate it that way. We've also done a meets and bounds description, and then we've gone and split or clipped out that underlying parcel on here. We've also shown you a couple of different ways that we can go and utilize some of the tools that are built in here to go and do cleanup on your parcels. By the way, I can do it this way if I want to be more efficient. Sorry. And clean it up that way while I'm doing that. And again, if I had my lines turned on, which are not turned on right now, but if I had them turned on, it would also clean up those lines at the same time. All right. Do we have any other questions, Dwayne? Anything coming in on questions or anything else we might want to go and show?
Nothing has come in recently.
Well, I've either put everybody to sleep or they're just mesmerized. I can't tell which right now.
I go with mesmerized because I am.
All right. So another thing that often has to happen is you're looking to go and fill in areas between other parcels. So let's go up here and take one parcel here, and let's just go and fill in something where it says we have to go and split this parcel where a creek runs through it or something. So again, what we can do is we can do a split, and it tells us that we can do a split interactively by drawing out what this is, or we can do it if we have that creek bed in another layer. We can go and use that to go and split this parcel. But in this case, since I don't have it, I'm just going to go and do it interactively. I'm going to go and draw where this is to allow me to go and split my parcel to show the two different sides lying on each side of a creek. All right. Notice it automatically calculated and updated the acreage for each of these. Let me go and show you again. There's 4 acres there. When we split it by the creek, it automatically goes and shows us where the boundaries of those 2 creeks are. All right. Nothing. See, the problem is here, Dwayne, I can't hear anybody saying, wow, that's really cool, because some of this stuff is really cool.
We had to put some canned applause and sound effects in next time.
We do. All right.
There is a question though that just came in. It said, Frank, is the attributes transfer function possible in Arc Pro?
Ah, yes, it is. So if in fact You know, it's interesting. Last year I was doing an ArcGIS Pro workshop, and that question came up at SHRUG. And the answer is yes, there is in fact an attribute transfer function in 2.6. So let's show you how it works. So attribute or transfer attributes is here. Now, we only have one layer in here, so it's not going to be a whole lot of things that we're going to show, but I can show you how to set it up and how it actually works. And because we have different attributes here, I'll show you. So there's not a whole lot of interface here, but if we go over here and pull this down for the options, we can see field mapping. So the field mapping will allow us to go and tell us we're going to go from the pro to the pro. Here's our two layers, our target and our source, and then it will go and attempt to match up the fields between them. If it turns out that I wanted, in one case, maybe I wanted map acres to actually go and have a different value in there, that's where it would do. And then once I set up the field mapping, I don't have to do anything else for it. And now it's just a matter of, just like in ArcMap, to go in here. So let's watch. I'm going to take A07 and take those attributes and put it over in A08. You'll see A07 now. It has the same attributes as A08. And I'll do that and move it over to A09 here. Now notice it doesn't, the label here is actually labeling the area of the polygon, so that's not a stored attribute, but all the other stored attributes are in there. Yes, ArcGIS Pro at 2.6, and this is actually 2.6.3. It has transfer attributes on there. I feel like a salesman, because now I'm going to say, but wait, there's more. There's more. Not only is the transfer attributes on here, but there's a sequential numbering. For those of us that were parcel mappers, we always used to look at, there was an old Arc script called SnakePin, which allows you to go and populate the parcel identification number on here. Well, this sequential numbering does much the same way, in which we pick the layer, and then we pick the field in which we want that layer to show up. All right, and if I'm remembering correctly, we're actually going and labeling here. We are labeling the parcel ID field. Okay, so it's a parcel ID field. And then what we have is we have this format. This format, and by the way, this is arcade. This is telling me that any place where there is a pound sign, to go and make sure that those values are calculated. And in this case, it's going to start calculating on my start value and increment by 1. And let's go here. Let's zoom out a little bit more, and let's just draw a line from here to here. All right. So now we can see that it went and automatically incremented and sequentially numbered the parcel ID field from 1 to 6 on here. But wait, there's more. So let's say, well, maybe I have to have another number. Maybe it has to be 3 characters long. So if I go and put 3 characters in here, and let's go and restart that again from 1 and draw it from here. Now when I do this, they get padded with zeros to go and make sure that it takes advantage of it all, so that I don't have to worry about going just 1 through 9 and then 9 through, or 10 through 99 and then 100 through 999. I just put the number of characters that have to get filled in, and I can just go and do that all the way without having to stop. Or if I do have to stop and maybe pick up at the next one, when I stop here, it will tell me what my next sequential number is. So I'm looking here and I see that this is 17-3 south -01 west dash 000 dash 04454 dash, and then those numbers at the end. So now I can tell it to go and use that to go and start again on 1. And now when I draw my line, now it will go and automatically go and start with, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here. And my next number is 7. So I could start 7 through 8 here, 7 through 8 on here. So it will automatically go and allow you to build a full parcel identification number with this to go and build your entire sequential number. You could also, perhaps this is not for parcels, but maybe you wanted to have lot, make it lot number whatever. Let's start at 1 again and go down through here. This is then lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this sequential numbering is a really, really nice tool, and it does not just have to work against parcels. It could also work against any other polygons that you might have in here. All right. It's a good question. So let's go through some of these other tools that are in here, and I'm going to go and change the size of this so you can actually see them a little bit better. There's the standard types of tools. There's edit vertices and a reshape tool, a replace geometry tool, multi-patches. Multi-patches are 3D surfaces in here. There's a continue and there's an extend. Let's look at the extend function a little bit. This one, yeah, I actually showed it a little bit earlier. Let me go in here and actually create some lines. All right, so let me go and show you also, this is a 2-point line. I can go in here and tell it to not rubber band after I do my lines. All right. So now I've got a whole bunch of lines in here. Let me go back to my modify and this extend trim. And like so many of the other tools inside of ArcGIS Pro, at the very bottom here, it says, do this without a selection. I'm just going to prove I'm going to turn off my selections. So I don't have any selection here. Now, when I go in here, and when I move over one of these, come on. When I move over one of these, you'll note if I'm over the top of one, it actually has a dash line, and that's going to trim if there's going to trim this, is going to trim that. I guess I didn't do anywhere. So let's trim this up here. There's an extend. So the dash line is a trim, and a solid line is an extend. So you can tell it to go and trim this line. All right. Go ahead and actually waiting. I hate to say this, but my machine is actually backing up right now. So it does do an extend, it does do trims on here. It does both of these using this extend trim function on here. Let me go and create another couple lines here. And then show you also just normal construction type line. There's a line intersection tool. All right. create new lines when extending them. So I can say, go ahead and take this line and extend them to here, and it will go and extend those. Or if I go back and say, don't create new lines, just extend these lines here, I can take this one and extend it, and it will go and extend them. Do they actually have vertices on here? No, they do not. It actually has truly extended those out for me. There is also a Fillet Tool. All right, and I can tell it a fixed radius, but let's just go and do it this way, this line, and I can go and tell it where I want, or I can right click and say a 30-foot radius, and then all I have to do is tell it what side, and it will go and automatically trim them up. And if my lines are COGO, it will automatically calculate the COGO for me on here. So let's go and do a couple more things. Again, this, because it's supposed to be about parcels. So let's get this one, and let's go here and actually update the COGO on these. And with the update COGO, which used to be called calculate COGO, I can tell it to update everything or only update it if it's beyond a certain variance. If it's more than 1 foot difference, update it. If not, leave it the same. I'm just going to go and tell it to do all of them. All right, so there they are there. So that's update COGO. So we've shown you the traverse tool, the update COGO tool, the let's go and select a line here and do a cul-de-sac on that line. And let's do it from the endpoint and show it that the road is 25 feet wide, the 60-foot radius. Oh, I want to hit the start of the line. 60-foot radius, and I want to come back 20 feet on here and tell it to go and create those. It will create those lines for me automatically. Again, this is set up to do much faster input, much faster calculations and such as we're going on this. And you can see it's actually gone and calculated what the length of those lines are and what the radius is on each of those. All right, so if I have these lines that I have here, let's go back here to modify and let's do a copy parallel. All right, and this might be a little bit better if we actually show the bearings and the distance rather than just that, so we can show the bearings and distance. So I can tell it to go and take these lines and copy them as individual discrete lines and do it 25 feet on each side. I can do it on both sides or just one side. I can tell it how to miter it. I can tell it to align the connected lines in here. And when I say go ahead, by the way, notice one of the things you have on ArcGIS Pro is you almost always have this show preview where it shows you what it's going to do before you actually tell it to do it. When I say go ahead and copy them, in fact, they automatically calculate what the COGO values are for those lines that I just copied and made parallel, so that here, this has got a 30-foot radius on it, but this has got a 55-foot radius, and this should have a 5-foot radius if I zoom in enough and see it. It automatically also calculates these values for here, so if there was an intersection, it would calculate those also. If I go in here, let's just take a line and let's split a line. All right, well, let's not split it, let's divide it. Let's divide a line. Now, earlier you saw me divide a polygon, and I'm using the same exact tool to divide a line. There is no differences now in Pro by design. You don't have 2 or 3 or 5 different tools, one for each of the different variations on it. You have one tool to divide, one tool to split. You only have one tool for that, and it understands what you have selected and goes to that. So now if I want to go and split a line, I can split it by a distance, equal parts, percentages, or I could do a single distance, I could do multiple equal distances, or I could do varying distances. Let me in this case just do a single distance. It tells me it's 64 feet, and I'm going to do it from the start of the line. So let's just do 20 feet off of it. All right. So it tells me 20 feet from the start of the line, or I could do 20 feet from the end of the line. It's going to come out there. And when I say divide up, all right, it automatically divided the 20 feet on here. And it wasn't quite sure how to handle this. So I can now go in there to this one and calculate what that distance is, either by doing an update COGO or actually just inputting that value on here. That would be 46.44 feet. And notice when I do that, it will go and change it from pink or from red to black. So now if I've got this and I go to a split instead of this, and now I can just split this interactively there. Automatically with a split, automatically will calculate what my COGO values are. It understands that these are COGO lines and that you wish to maintain these values. So if there isn't a COGO value in there, it will go and calculate what that new value is. Again, because it's numbers and not text, it has the ability to go and update them as you go, and you don't have to update them any longer. All right. Let's see what else we might have. Split, planarize, generalize, buffer, construct. So if I have a set of lines, and let me go and just create a line across the end here, and I'm going to select this line, and this line. I'm going to unselect my polygon. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to say construct a polygon and cluster tolerance. And use notice it did not let me go and build a polygon because all of my polygons were turned off. So there is some intelligence that's being built into this. So I can now go and build that. That is now on here. There's my polygon and my vertices of my polygon on here. It then goes and shows them to me. All right. Is there anything specifically that anybody wants to see before we go? What else can I show you on here?
If you do have anything, just type it into the question box, and then I will see it and we'll get it to Frank.
Perfect. In the meantime, let me go and show you one more thing. So there is one of the things that we're always challenged with that if we are parcel mappers is if we get a right-of-way map from the Department of Transportation. And right-of-way maps, for the most part, will have a described center line, which might be a baseline of a road. And then the actual rights-of-way are described relative to that baseline. So it doesn't use bearings and distances. It uses what's called stationing and offset. So in here, we can actually interactively just draw the baseline, or we can have an existing centerline feature. In this case, I'm just going to draw it on here. And I'm just going to draw, there's my baseline here. It tells me this baseline is 296 feet long, and I can tell what the stationing is. So maybe it's 10 plus 0, 0 is my stationing. All right. And then that's my ending point on here. So now what I can do is I can tell it how far along that line, how far along that baseline my measurement is, and then whether it's to the right or the left. So in this case, I can go 100 feet. All right. And it is 15 feet to the right. And my next one is 125 feet along, and it's 20 feet to the right. My next one is 200 feet along, and it is 40 feet to the right. And I'm using my lines here. I can say go ahead and create these 2-point lines, and I did not do it. Let's go and do this again. There it is. So there they are in there. So it goes and uses how far off it is. This is 15, this is 20, and then it goes to 200, and then it's 40. So the stationing and offset is actually a very nice tool. If you ever have to go and do any sort of reconstruction of any road right-of-way takings, it's a very nice tool. One thing I didn't show you, this is one of my favorite tools. If we do have, for example, a road taking here, all right, if we have this parcel going and dedicating a portion of road out here, we can do a reshape on that and say, let's take this, go parallel here for a distance of, I think this is 40 feet here. And we go parallel here. And then we can go click back here. And it will automatically allow you to go and do takings or vacations or abandonments of roads on here using, again, simple tools in here in ArcGIS Pro. So what we've done is we've talked about very, very simple type of tools that we can go and use editing on. But inside of ArcGIS Pro, we can build much more complex types of feature templates so that when I build a polygon, I can also automatically have it create the lines for me on here. So again, it can be as complex as you want or as simple as you want. The other thing I want to remind everyone is that this is not using the parcel fabric, so that you can edit shapefiles, although I would not edit shapefiles, because shapefiles have densified curves on them. You can edit a file geodatabase. You can edit this in SDE because it's not a parcel fabric. You could also edit this on ArcGIS Online if you had it up on ArcGIS Online. So it allows you to go and have multiple variations on here. It does not allow you to edit personal geodatabases on there, but it is flexible enough that allows you to do all the others.
All right. We didn't have any more questions come in, although when you did talk about mesmerizing, several people did respond with their mesmerized as well. One thing that I'd kind of thought in watching this, I can not really a parcel editor. I consider myself a parcel user, so I use the parcel layer for my mapping and such. But in looking over this, what are your thoughts on using this as a tool, like for a zoning administrator updating the zoning parcels? I know here in Thomasville, we have some of our zoning, it might go, it's 100 feet from road center line is commercial, and then beyond that is R1. So you have dual zoned parcels.
And let me go and first give you my opinion on this, and then we'll go from there. So if I had another layer in here, if I had a zoning layer, all right, or comprehensive land use plan or future land use plan or whatever, the tools that are inside of Pro are so much easier to work with than the old ArcMap tools. Things such as these alignment tools here. And I didn't even show this, the transform tool, if you need to move something over and make it fit. The align edge tool, this is the one that can be closing in on things. The align features tool to make sure that your zoning layers are now coincident with your parcel layers. There's nothing worse than having the parcel mappers go and remap a couple parcels, and then suddenly all the other layers that are dependent upon them are out of alignment. Well, with these features here, the align edge, the align features, those two there are very, very useful for quickly going in. Once you know what's changed, quickly going in and fixing these things to fit. So again, I don't have another layer in here, but let me go in and say, let's assume that in fact we have a zoning layer that used to be here. And by the way, there's another layer that doesn't quite align up with this thing. All right, so we've got a couple issues here. We've got an alignment issue between our data layers, and then we've got another alignment issues, which is that our parcels have changed. So let's first look at that alignment issue between our two sets of our own layer, so that this layer here, how do we go and get this thing to work? Well, that's what this align features tool is. And again, note by default, it comes out to trace. So if I'm on here and I can go to trace and say trace, I'm going to do this instead. Here to here to here, that's the boundary of it. And if I go and set this out wide enough and make sure that, in this case, let's make sure we capture that thing there. So let's make it round at the end and tell it to realign the adjacent zoning so that it fits in with this, so that we get rid of any overlaps or gaps that we have between them. All right, that's one of the things we can do. We can also go in here and say, well, if we know that they're coincident on both ends and we have just problems in here, we can go in here and use the align edge tool. All right, as long as we have map topology turned on, and say this one and move it over so it's coincident and close that up for us on here. So those two tools by themselves are really, really important for going and making sure that we keep our data as clean as possible. The other thing is we said, well, there's a change in our parcels, and maybe in fact, we're supposed to be coincident with that new road taking. Again, we can go in here and just draw where it's supposed to be on here and say, go ahead and realign that, and it will automatically realign all of our existing data so that it fits within there. All right, so the tools that are inside of Pro are perfect to make sure that you can maintain as quickly as possible, that you can maintain your data and make sure it stays coincident, even if the other departments are going and changing things and fixing things as they go along. The only thing that has to be done is you have to make sure you understand or have a way to identify what has been changed on there. All right, so to answer your question, yes, it's the new edit tools are much more efficient. They're advanced light years beyond what we used to have inside of ArcMap. They're much more efficient in what they're doing. And once you learn how to use them, the sky's the limit.
That was definitely impressive to see how quickly and easy. I know I spent many a time when I was first in the planning department realigning the zoning layer to the parcel layer and giving up on some layers. Says, okay, it's close enough, which was not right, but this looks good here. I don't see any other questions that have come through. And do you have anything else in the last few minutes before we close up?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, there's so much in here that you can go through. I do want to mention there is one more thing here. I mentioned early on when we were talking about labeling, how you could go and utilize Arcade, which is the new scripting language, to go and label things. Arcade is also a great language to go and do things such as on the fly, I can go and create an intersection of another layer. If I had a zoning layer here, for example, I could go and say, populate a zoning attribute inside, and I know if you have more than one zoning on a parcel that doesn't count, but I'm going to assume just to show you this functionality, I could actually go and intersect another layer in my map and say, pull the attributes out of there and put them into here. All right, I could go in and do that. And from a parcel mapping standpoint, we do that a lot because we'll have parcels and we'll have subdivisions and we'll have lots and we'll have the public land survey system information where we have the sections and the townships and the range and such, so that we can develop an Arcade calculation script that automatically goes and drills down and says, automatically, when I create a parcel, calculate which section it's in, which township it's in, which lot and block if it's inside of a subdivision, and put all of that information in these individual attribute fields for me. It can automatically go and calculate that for me. That brings up one more thing. One final thing we'll leave you with. Inside of ArcGIS Pro, there is a function called Attribute Rules. This is the replacement for the old Attribute Assistant. Right? The Attribute Assistant used to be something you would add on in ArcMap. Attribute Rules actually goes with the data. All right, and this allows me to go and add a rule, for example, if I wanted to automatically calculate and fill in a map acre field on here, I could say calc acres on here and have it go and take and say, go to map acres, and then go and say automatically to go and take that area. I'm going to use that same expression I used before. This $ feature means whatever I'm working on, whatever polygon I'm working on, return the acre value. Now, by the way, Arcade's pretty smart. I can say, don't return acreage, return square footage on here. But in this case, I'm going to say, let's just return the acreage on here. And then every time I create a new parcel, and every time I update a parcel, automatically have that populate itself. All right, so again, there's all sorts of things you can do with Arcade here. I can also, that's called the calculation rule. There's also constraint rules in which you can constrain it and say, don't allow your parcels to be more than, or allow your polygons to be less than a certain area here. There's validation on here, which says you have to validate this. Is make sure that your name field, make sure that your parcel ID field is filled in, so it validates that and make sure that that's all complete. So let me go in and just finish this. It's actually telling me that I have to go and save changes before I can go and do that. When I'm done here now, I can save this. Now, this is a rule that every time I create a polygon here, all right, every time I create a polygon here, what am I doing here? On the fly, it's always tough. List it in here. So I'm not even sure this is going to work right now, but if I go in here and I create a polygon in here, and if I look at the attributes on here, nope, it didn't fire it off, but it would automatically go and calculate that for me on here for me. So you can begin to make your data structure much more intelligent than you ever could have in ArcMap. There's a downside. Because this is only the newest generation of technology, it does not work in ArcMap. And if you create attribute rules inside of your database, it cannot be read with ArcMap. So be careful with attribute rules. That's actually why I was doing it. Think about it, because I had it open. I had this same data set open in ArcMap. It's still open in ArcMap, so it wouldn't let me do that. Smart enough to stop me, but it didn't tell me that. So just be careful. Attribute rules are great, but once you put attribute rules in there, that means you are ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, Enterprise only. You are never going to open it up in ArcMap again. But everything up to this point, you could do and still have it opened in ArcMap together with in ArcGIS Pro. All right, hopefully this was a little bit all over the place. Hopefully it sort of gave you a sense for how far along ArcGIS Pro is now, and the fact that you can do parcel mapping inside of Pro. You don't need parcel fabric. Oh, this is recorded, isn't it? Sorry. You can do it inside of Pro. It works. The tools are so amazing right now in Pro. One more thing, sorry, I hate to do this. One more thing. We have, since COVID hit, we have been conducting monthly workshops, and we actually have three different sets of workshops here. The first Thursday of every month, we have one that focuses on ArcGIS Pro. Editing, setting it up. We've done how do you create a map series in there, all this. The third Thursday of every month is the ArcGIS Parcel Fabric for those people that are parcel mappers and their parcel fabrics, which means tomorrow we're having one of these. The fourth Thursday of every month, we have what's called a deep dive. And if you actually look here on our webpage, panicconsulting.com, and look at workshops, here is some samples of what we've done. In the Pro, we've done simple labels with Arcade, curves, feature templates, topology, adjusting features, symbolizing, editing tools, interfacing, and introduction. On the Parcel Fabric one, we've done building subdivisions and inputting parcels and densified curves and all kinds of parcel stuff. The one I really love is the deep dive. Actually, Ned Cake with TLC GIS has helped us on a lot of these. We've done everything from Parcel Drafter and vector tiles and model builder, and Ned helped us a lot on story maps. Arcade, also, he helped us a lot on Arcade, Data Designer. All you need to go out there is, on any of these workshops, is to sign me up. You sign up, it goes and takes you to a form. All right, just says, give us your email address so we get you on that list. First name, last name, organization, how you want it. We never use this for marketing. This is only so that we can give you the registration to get in. And as soon as you sign up and hit submit, you'll get an email back with the keys to the kingdom. You'll get the registrations for all 3 of the workshops, and you get access to all of the recordings since the very beginning. So there's some good stuff out there. It is free training for you. Those people that attend these, it is, you can go to meeting, they ask questions, and as they ask questions, we go and we demo how to do it. So it's not something where you can only listen to us. You ask questions, and that's where we go. Please register. We have about 525 people already that are on the list, and quite a few of them attend. So please, I hope you take that away also. Thank you.
All right,
Hard
well, thank
stop.
you. Yes, thank you very much, Frank, for that. An impressive presentation. I know it kept me going and thinking and such. And as a novice in the parcel editing area, you took a very complex workflows and tools that I wasn't aware of and made it very easy to understand. So that's always a good sign, and impressive on the offer with the training at the end as well. Really appreciate that. So everybody, that does bring us to the end. I did put a link in the little question chat for everybody to the registration schedule. So if you've not signed up for sessions for tomorrow, you can go to that link and you can sign up for any sessions that you'd like to see tomorrow. Again, Frank, thank you very much for this very informative presentation. I know that a lot of us will be taking this information back with us, and as I said earlier, probably creating more work for us, but at least we'll have the knowledge to start with that good work. And wish everybody.
Yeah, listen, if anybody has any questions, come register for that and attend our workshops on Thursdays. Again, ask us some questions. It's free consulting, it's free training. Go and do that. Thanks. We're happy to help you.
Definitely. Well, have a good night, everybody, and we will see you all tomorrow morning. Take care.
Dwayne, thank you for that.